When life hands you dried up, beaten up, broken down lemons, do you still have the mindset that I'm going to find a way to make lemonade? If you don't, strap in because today's episode with my new friend Rebecca Shingledecker is going to talk to you about her incredible journey the last few years and why her mentality is I don't care how bad the lemons are, you give me life, I'm still going to find a way to make lemonade. My name is Jake Thompson, your Chief Encouragement Officer, and this is the Compete Everyday Podcast, a show designed to encourage and equip you with the tools to build a winning mindset so you can build your winning life. Text podcast to 972-945-9113 to join our morning motivation club, and visit CompeteEveryday.com for past podcast episodes and to learn more about our resources and gear for ambitious people who are ready to start winning. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the Compete Everyday Podcast, Competitor Nation, and excited about today's brand new episode as we talk with Rebecca Shingledecker about her experience at the CrossFit Games inaugural Adaptive Athlete Division. How life was normal until 2018 when a brain tumor and then subsequent 2 different brain injuries following that have completely changed her life, but not her attitude, not her tenacity, and not her willingness to show up and compete every single day. Not just because she's not ready to give up on herself, but because she knows other people are watching her. Rebecca and I talk about her traumatic journey, about the tumor, about the surgeries, about overcoming paralysis. We talk about the limitations that she currently has, but more than that, we talk about the limitless mindset she continues to grow and develop. And what are the things that she does to silence those doubts? What are the things she does to reframe her thoughts in the midst of an uncomfortable workout or when her body's starting to fail her in ways that it never had before? There's a ton of powerful lessons in this episode, most specifically on how we reframe the thoughts we have in our mind. We don't always control what thoughts we think, but we do control if we listen to those thoughts or if we choose to stop and reframe them. And Rebecca talks about how she does that. She talks about how her family helped support that with their self-talk. And I think there's a ton of valuable just insights into her journey that are applicable to every single one of us today as we surround ourselves with the right people, as we improve our self-talk, knowing that how we talk to ourselves is the most important conversation going on in our head every day. And what are the things that we can do to show up a little bit stronger every day? So you're in for quite a treat with this brand new episode, and I hope you're ready for it as well. Before I dive into the show, I want to encourage you to join the Morning Motivation Club. There are thousands of you that I get to start the day with every single day, and I hope you listening to this, if you're not signed up yet, today is the day you join. All you have to do is text the word podcast to 972-945-9113. That's 972-945-9113. You'll be opted into the Morning Text Club. Every morning, I'm going to send you a little encouraging or a motivational text. And a few times throughout the week, I'm going to drop in some notes on ways to improve your focus, your mindset, your self-talk. Just little tips and tricks that you can start using to apply in your daily journey to better compete. The better you compete, the better you have a chance to reach your goals. The more goals you reach, the closer you get to reaching your full potential and finding out just exactly how much you were created to achieve. So all you got to do to join the Morning Text Club is text podcast to 972-945-9113. 2 things to be on the lookout coming up. The Win Your Next Journal is so close. I can feel it. We're getting ready to drop this new daily journal on the Compete Everyday website here in the next couple of weeks. And I hope you're ready because this planner takes the competitor scorecard that was in my book. If you've read Compete Every Day, then you know about the competitor scorecard. So many of you are using it every day. We took the blueprint of that scorecard and we took it to a new level. What I started to see out there in the market is the scorecard worked, but it had some limitations. There are some incredible journals out there in the world. I've talked about some of the best ones. I love Catherine Lavery over at Best Self Co. They have a phenomenal Best Self journal. But sometimes getting into other people's journals, I found myself overwhelmed at everything I needed to do to get going when I really just want to get started. And one of the things I heard about Compete Every Day in the book that really challenged me is this idea that book is phenomenal if you're experienced with leadership, personal development, mental performance. If you've done work in that space, it's great because it reinforces and teaches a little bit more. But if you've never picked up those books, if you always feel like leadership development, personal development, self-help's a little hokey for you, Compete Every Day is a phenomenal starter book because it's straight truth. It's not hokey. It's not pokey. It's not dancing all around. It's all about straight truths and choices and things that we can do every day. And when I looked at the market on journals and daily planners, I said, man, there's some incredible ones out there for experienced goal getters. And I highly, highly encourage you to go look at some of those. But if you're just stuck feeling always busy, if you're stuck feeling like you don't know where to start, if you're just trying to keep it all in your head every day and you keep losing and forgetting stuff, then I'm going to challenge you to check out the Win Your Next journal, because this journal is designed to just help you get going. Get your eyes off the busy and start competing every day. Take time every day to flex a little gratitude. Take time every day to build your self-awareness in a straightforward, easy to use, easy to complete journal. I'll have more details for you about the journal in the coming weeks and its exact release date, but I want you to be excited more than anything. I want you to get your eyes ready to start checking it out, because this is going to help you win the day every day, to be locked into this moment, to not worry about tomorrow, to not be living and stuck in the past, but showing up every day to lay a brick toward the foundation of who you want to be, to lay a brick toward the path of reaching that goal, and to more importantly, to compete, to be your best self, so you can bring your best self to every single person you interact with. Now, to get in touch with me or the show, drop me an email to podcast@competeeveryday.com. I love getting to hear from you. I love, more importantly, getting to talk to each of you about what you're doing to compete, what goals you're chasing. So if you want to start a conversation, send me an email to podcast@competeeveryday.com. And now let's get into today's episode with my new friend, Rebecca Shingledecker. Rebecca, welcome to the Compete Everyday podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm looking forward to today's conversation. You have quite the story and inspirational journey. I know we were connected by a fellow member of Competitor Nation, Reed Fitzgerald, but tell me a little bit about what you did in the last, 2 months?
Well, I don't know, man. I'm lost track of time. But yeah, I went to the CrossFit Games. So excited. I was part of the inaugural adaptive division, and I was in the neuro division.
So let me ask you about that experience. One, what was the trip to Madison like for you? How was the competitive experience?
Oh my gosh. It was so amazing. I can't even tell you. I was ready to come back before I'd even left. So that's why I came back, and my coach had to smartly force me to take a break, let my body recover, because I was ready to start training again. I do have the Wheelwad Games coming up in November, but I'm totally psyched to get back to the games next year.
I love it. You had mentioned that you were in the adaptive athlete division, the neuro division. Tell us what qualified you for that. Tell us what you currently are challenged with.
Well, so in 2018, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor on my motor control center, which is the part that controls your strength. It was March 14th, 2018, which happens to be our daughter's birthday, but also the same day I got my L1 CrossFit certificate in the mail. So on that day I made a decision that I would fight it, and I was a little naive because I didn't realize what a fight I was in for. But I said that I would take my motto has been take the sourest lemon life has to offer and turn it into something resembling lemonade. So I had brain surgery. I think it was 16 days later, something like that. So March 30th in 2018, woke up 2 days later, paralyzed on the right side, and spent 7 days in the ICU, and then 2 weeks in rehab, starting to relearn to walk. And well, I actually got onto a walker so they could send me home. And then, months and months and a long time later, before I started walking on my own. And then I had two more brain injuries since then. So within a year, I accumulated two more brain injuries, one from a car accident 6 months after surgery, and then a year after that, after a year after surgery, I dropped a 65-pound barbell on my head. So that gave me another one. But, that's what got me here and has allowed me to participate in this exciting division. It's, yeah. So, I mean, I don't think I'm to the point where I'd be wishing another brain tumor, but I also know that this is part of my lemonade making process. And yeah, it's exciting.
I've got a number of questions for you. One of the first ones
Yeah.
is around the lemonade.
Mhm.
Has that always been your mentality, or was that your mentality going through this process the last 3 years?
Well, like I said, I was in for a fight. I mean, I knew I wanted to fight it, and I had plans and I had goals, and I just got my coaching certificate, and I just figured I wouldn't let this stop me. That tenacity has always been, and plus, well, what's always been my mentality from a little girl is like, tell me I can't do something and I'll prove you wrong. And I felt like in some ways this was telling me that I don't know if I would go so far to say my life is over, but I felt like it was putting limitations on me. And that's just something that you just never do to me. I'm a redhead, so I'm stubborn and yeah, so it just kind of lit a fire in me. And I'm glad that it did, because when I never thought I would end up paralyzed. I mean, you know how when you have surgery, they give you all the possible complications. One of them is always you could die, but you never, obviously that's not usually going to happen. But the possibility of paralysis was right above that, like unlikely. And so I never thought it would happen to me. And it was only supposed to be like a 3-day hospital stay for brain surgery. I mean, but my mind just extended for a long time. And so, yeah, it's pretty much how I've always been.
Well, one of the things that Reed talked about with you when he first reached out was just part of your spirit, and hearing you talk about your story echoes that, because it's very easy for any of us when something happens that's outside of your control, which essentially the tumor was, that we become victims and we adopt this victim mentality and we just kind of give up. We might not just say, hey, I'm ready to die, but we just kind of give up, become very complacent. Everything you've told me is that you were the complete opposite of that throughout this process. And so one thing I'm curious about is if you remember, like lying in the hospital bed or just getting up on the walker and realizing how far you still have left to go, what kept you continually doing the work, showing up, instead of just looking at how far you had left to go to get back to maybe where you were, to do things that you used to do, and just giving up?
Well, I think there's a number of things. One was just I believe that God set me up for in my CrossFit coaching class, training certificate, whatever you want to call it, class. I had a man named Kevin Ogar as my one of my coaches, and for those that don't know, he's became paralyzed several years ago, and he was the first person, I think the only person at this point, that is in a wheelchair that became a red shirt. And so he was training us to do things that he couldn't do physically. And I messaged him from my rehab bed, and I was like, I don't know if you remember me, and he messaged back, and I told him what had went on, and he says, I always remember a fiery redhead. And so So to see where he became he was a professional athlete, then he
Yep.
became paralyzed, but then he took up professional adaptive athletics, and then all the stuff that he's accomplished. And so that was part, but really, even without him, I would have, like, I just knew it was almost like it made me mad that this anger in a productive way, like, no, you're not gonna take this from me, and I have plans, and and to be honest, the plans ended up turning in a different way because I have a lot of cognitive issues, and so uh, that have kept me from doing some stuff, but I do as much as I can, and but physically, um, it just it just lit a fire in me, and I just was like, because I also had started sharing my story on some Facebook pages and stuff, and all these people were following me, and I just, it wasn't necessarily my motivation, but I knew I couldn't show them that to quit, and I have kids and just all these people that believed in me, and that's kind of a motivator too, but really it's just my personality.
Well, a strong personality with little tenacity mixed in with knowing people are watching you and the opportunity you have to set the example for them, not only for your kids that you mentioned, but those watching online, and
Yeah.
showing this is what I've gone through. This is not what's going to stop me or define me.
Mhm.
One thing I'm curious about, the road back, it was a long one, but at what point did you start to get the inclination or the itch to say, I actually want to be more competitive with CrossFit? Like I want to get back to where I'm moving. Now
Mhm.
I'm moving. I want to start training.
Mhm.
Oh, maybe I want to give this thing a go.
Well, I've always been competitive. I mean, like, so I think since the day I was born. So it's pretty much everything is a competition to me. But
You're in the
so you
right
don't,
place.
yeah, as I say, you don't have to. You have to more tell me not to compete at some time. Uh, but anyhow, I had started. I did the wheel wad
Mhm.
open in November. Uh, which just a side note is I had tore my scapholunate ligament in my wrist in last April, around April 2020, and I had to have wrist reconstruction in July of 2020, and so the wheel wad open was November of 2020, and it's a miracle that I was able to do that because my hand surgeon said it was like a year recovery, and I was like,
Wow.
yeah, so I did it, and I did really well, and so I moved on, and then and that also. But to be honest with you, CrossFit, like, y'all found out the same time as I found out that we were going to the games. So I I just determined that I was gonna try and crush the open, which thankfully I did because they only took the top five to the games, but we found out like 6 or 8 weeks before the CrossFit games that we were even going. I read an article, and I was like, had to screenshot and have someone else have read it, and my husband read it, and like, does this mean what I think it means? And so I didn't make a conscious decision to go to the CrossFit games, but I made a conscious decision to do, to crush what I could crush, and that's really always my mentality, to be honest.
Well, I might argue with you a little bit that you did make the decision, because even though you got the opportunity, you could have declined it. You could
Oh,
have
of
said, I'm
course, yeah.
still struggling with this. I don't know. Even though there's other adaptive athletes, talk to us a little bit for everyone listening today that maybe isn't as familiar yet. Talk to us a little bit about the neuro division. What were some of the adaptations they made with the workouts, or what are some things that you've learned to adapt in how you train and how you work out now, that you obviously didn't prior to 2018?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, one thing is that things make me ill. Like, there's a difference between being tough, and we all have those things that we hate to do, but but we can do it. I have things that, like wall balls, for instance, because my eyes were affected too. I'm not sure if it's because of the tumor or the brain injuries afterwards, but changing elevation, um, having to look up and down, that makes me really, really sick. And like nauseous, dizzy, my legs start shaking. And so I've had to learn to, at times I've avoided those things just to keep from making me sick. But now, because I know CrossFit throws whatever and anything at you, and and the neuro division is very broad, so that's a little bit a little different discussion. But because basically because of I know that some things make me ill, I just have to push through it. I mean, like at the games, the last day, I have never thought I was going to throw up as much. It's not just because CrossFit was tough. It's because my brain, like I was shaking, my legs were shaking, my central nervous system gets taxed. Like, I mean, like it wouldn't be if I had a normal brain. So I have to, I just have to decide that I'm gonna feel worse than the average person and go for broke. You know what I mean? I mean, first of all, it was the CrossFit Games, so uh, I who's gonna quit at the CrossFit Games? Like I ended up crawling off of the floor. Like that's who gets to crawl off the CrossFit Games competition floor? That's me.
Do
But
you do you
yeah.
remember in the moment of starting to feel sick, dealing with some of those movements, what how you were talking to yourself? Do you talk to yourself during workouts? Do you just zone out? What kind of goes on within you during the middle of that discomfort during that workout, and then when you start to feel sick?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not going to lie to you and say that it's definitely a work in progress, because uh, when I feel so sick, it's easy to go to like, why do I do this to myself place? But I am, that's one thing my coach has helped me. It's helped me with more with my self-talk and stuff. But especially because, here's another thing that's happened since my brain injuries is that, well, my tumor was in my frontal lobe, and so that controls a lot of emotions and various things like that. I've been blessed that somehow it's by miracle that I've been able to control like more than some people, but there's also times where I just feel bad, and I'll have to stop and reframe, stop myself mid thought and reframe it. And now I'm like, you're a champion. You can do this. And now having the CrossFit Games behind me is like, I've had my husband one time looked at me recently and while in the middle of a workout that was really tough on my central nervous system, and said that he said he said, I'm married to a CrossFit Games athlete. You can do this. And yeah, obviously he was talking about me, but like, so I wear, like my jersey and various things to help remind me that who I am. And we all have tough times.
We
So
do.
we
We
can
do.
always reframe the thoughts in our head and tell ourselves who we are, not how we feel.
I love that. Well, and that's one of the biggest keys to life is reframing those thoughts. We can't help sometimes what we think, but
Mhm.
we can control if we listen to those thoughts or if we choose to reframe it, like you said. And I love how you wear different things. And obviously, the people around you reinforce who you want to be and who you
Mhm.
are and
Mhm.
what you've done. And that's how we build our confidence.
Yeah.
Wow. So let me ask you this, Rebecca. What has you most excited going into the new year? Because I would
Mm.
imagine that competitive bug is still there to make
Oh,
another run at this.
yeah.
What has you most excited about your second go now with CrossFit?
Yeah. Well, first, I don't want to discount the wheel wide games because it's a worldwide. adaptive competition, which for some, because the CrossFit Games only had 3 divisions. They only allowed upper extremity, lower extremity, and neuro. So we didn't get our brothers and sisters that are in wheelchairs and all these things. They didn't get to compete. So this is the competition. This is like World CrossFit Games 2, and so I'm super excited about that. But I'm excited to go back to the games and just because I know it's going to be because other people have seen that we can get to the games. The competition is going to be even more stiff, and instead of like thinking, wow, how am I going to make it? But I'm excited to compete against even more of the best in the world to show my work and how I've improved. I mean, I've already we started a strength cycle for me because strength hasn't been my strength, because sheer brute force, because I'm not a huge person, but also my central nervous system gets taxed, and it gets kind of sketchy. But these past 5 weeks alone, since the games, I've already gotten like a 10-pound push press PR, and that's huge and for me, and so I'm really excited to show my improvements and show what we can do, and show that we're athletes that you don't have to feel sorry for. We're competitors and ferocious, and yeah.
I love it. I love it. Rebecca, where can people follow your journey? I know you're active on Instagram. What is your username, and how can people follow along your journey throughout Wheelwad, CrossFit Games, and everything you are attacking to finish 2021 and into 2022?
Yeah, excuse me. My Instagram is lemonademaker76, and then I'm on Facebook at Rebecca Shingledecker.
What a great Instagram name.
Right?
I love it. I love it. I wish more people today took that attitude that I'm going to take the absolute worst lemons I can ever find, and I'm still going to find a way to make something resembling lemonade from it. I really appreciate you making some time this afternoon to hang on the Compete Everyday podcast, and I know our listeners were inspired. Please go online, follow Rebecca's journey. You will be inspired as well. And the next time that you start hearing your own negative inner voices and doubts and wonder, you're going to remember this conversation. You're going to remember that you're going to make lemonade. And as Rebecca talked to us today, you're going to reframe those conversations to be more helpful. So Rebecca, thank you for hanging out today.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Compete Everyday podcast. To get in touch with the team, drop us an email to podcast@competeeveryday.com. And to find out more about our resources, content, and gear that will help you build that winning mindset so you better compete for your best life, visit competeeveryday.com.